welcome to the Silent Range. I'm your host Jason. Join me while we finish our custom paint job on this Stevens Model 200 rifle. The last step of this custom build is to make the rifle sexy with some nylons, and we're going to ghost in a little white and a little black. And what that's going to do is add a really cool kind of a lacy pattern to it. So as you can see, I'm stretching the nylons out to get the pattern that I want, and then I tie knots on the end of it to hold the tension. What this does is it opens up the pattern and gives me different shapes and different directions. Right here I'm lightly ghosting in a little bit of white. As we've talked about in the past, I wanted the rifle to be a little lighter on the bottom. So a little bit of white on the bottom to soften everything up just on that bottom part. Now what I'm doing here is just adding a couple hair ties. And what this is going to do for me is it's going to hold the nylon from that middle point to the end of the stock. And then I've got these little clips I use in my photography. They work really good for holding clothing back or holding a curtain. You never know when they might come in handy. And what I'm doing here is I'm stretching the nylon, the fabric out, different directions and different tensions to create a really cool pattern effect. And as you can see, it really opens up. Now I ghost a little black over the top of everything to create some direction and some depth. I'm so excited to see it. But as you'll see, once I take the nylon off and look at it, I realize I just want a little more depth and a little more pattern to it. So I'm going to wrap it back up here, and I'm just going to hit it one more time with a little bit of black and a little bit of white, just to add some extra shadow and some extra pattern. So you'll notice here that I'm holding the white quite a bit further away. So even though it looks like I'm painting quite a bit more on, I'm holding the can far enough away that it's really just kind of feathering the paint on it, and most of it's overspraying past the... I'm really excited for the final reveal here. This was the last step on the rifle, next to giving it a light sand and then giving it several coats of that flat clear. And that's what we'll see in the next series here. Now the goal with this sanding is not to do anything more than knock down the high spots and take off the sheen of that last coat. The same thing will hold true with every coat that I do of this Krylon Fusion flat clear. Each coat I let sit for about an hour, and then I hit it with the between the coats sanding pad from 3M, and then I hit it with another coat of that flat clear. And that really gave me a nice finish. Very even coats and a really nice flat color. So I'm just finishing up the last coat of the clear and final reveal, and then we move on to doing that barrel. Now the barrel is really simple. I'm doing one color, several coats of that matte river rock. So what you see me doing here is a little bit of prep. I did some sanding and scuffing on it, hitting it with some denatured alcohol to get any fingerprints and oils off of it. And then I'm going to just start going to town on it with the matte river rock. The difference here versus when I did the stock is this one I definitely want even coverage. I want the thickness throughout the barrel to be the same. So I'm doing very thorough coats here, making sure not to put too much on in one spot at a time so I don't get runs. And you can see here I had some really, really nice coverage. Let it sit for about an hour, and then I go back and I just wipe it down with some denatured alcohol, scuff down some high spots because I got some dust in there from the garage, and then we do it again. Now this process, although sped up about 500 times, actually took me several days. I painted it and let it sit for an hour or so, would scuff it and paint it again, but the process itself probably took 2.5 days to complete. Now while I let that last coat of clear dry, I decided to go ahead and do a heavy cleaning on all the internal components. And while I keep my rifle pretty clean, there's just some areas that unless you disassemble your rifle, you just can't get to. So I just decided to take advantage of the ultrasonic cleaner. I diluted the purple powder about 10-to-1, let it run for about 10 minutes, and everything turned out beautifully. A few last little bits that I need to paint: the scope mounts, and then a little bit of dry fitting. Now, what I learned is that when you disassemble your rifle, you probably need to make sure you know how it goes back together. And in the haste of taking apart this magazine, I realized that I didn't pay attention to how it came apart, and it took me quite some time to get everything to fit back together properly. So here's the thing. I realized after I assembled this rifle that I didn't have the magazine set in there quite properly, and I took it apart and I put it back together, and I took it apart and I put it back together, and then I got out to the range, which you'll see in a later video, and had a really hard time getting the cartridges to seat into the magazine. So I'm not sure if there was an alignment issue from when I put it back together, or if I just put it back together and everything tightened up a little bit, but it still shoots really, really well, and you'll see that here at the end of this video. So I go through a series of test fitting. I want to make sure that everything fits back together properly. And I had some alignment issues initially, which is what keyed me in that the magazine wasn't seated properly. So after a few attempts at seating it and unseating it, I finally got it. So you'll see me fidgeting with the bolt here, and I try several times unsuccessfully to put it back in, and I've had this bolt out many times to clean it, and in all those times I never paid attention to the fact that there's a small indexing point on one of the lugs. And typically when I take it out, I just take it out and I put it right back in, but this time it was out for several days. I moved it around, it went in the ultrasonic cleaner, and in doing all of that, I must have twisted that lug and got it misaligned. So again, pay attention to how it comes apart, and that'll make going back together so much easier. And at last, some final assembly. Just have to put the mounts back on, put the scope back on, and it's time to take it out to the range. I'm really excited about how this turned out. If I could have done it over, I would have done a few things differently. I probably would have painted the entire bolt, and I would have painted the scope, and I can always do that in a future project, so that's not off the table. But it would have been nice to just do it while I had this apart. Hey, and thanks for hanging out with me on this build. I really appreciate the support. Don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more from the Silent Range.